and welcome to the Candidate on Election Exchange. We're in conversation with Milind Deora, a member of the current government, as he takes a shot at winning the South Mumbai constituency for the third time. Milind Deora, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. This is going to be the third time that you're actually going to be contesting. You won the last two times. But is this a different election, Milind? Because this time around, you're not just dealing with issues of anti-incumbency, but you're also dealing with a very strong anti-Congress sentiment. Are you feeling a difference this time around as you go on the campaign trail?
Well, you know, Shireen, this is, like you said, my third election, and I remember my first election, in fact, in 2004, when BJP was in power. Vajpayee ji was Prime Minister of India, and the BJP was running the India Shining campaign, and there was a sense, at least amongst the market community, the financial community, certain sections of society, that BJP is going to come to power and that they're the only party that can provide stability, growth, economic growth and other things. And just a month and a half or 2 months later, not only did I win, but Congress came to power and we got 145 seats and BJP
So
got 138 seats.
are you saying this election is like
So
2004? Are you saying this election is like 2004, that the markets are misreading the mood of the nation and perhaps the Congress is going to do better than what people imagined it to do?
Well, I think look at the last few elections. You know, 2004, as I said, we weren't expected to win. We won. 2009, we weren't expected to win or get the number of seats we got, and we got 207 seats. We increased our tally by over 50 seats. So I frankly believe, I mean, in the beginning, when I started my political career, I took opinion polls and this sentiment and these waves quite seriously. But I've learned in the last 10 years to ignore them and to, you know, debunk the myths associated with them. And I think ultimately it's almost arrogant for any political party, politician, even a pollster to really predict elections. I think India is too diverse and too heterogeneous a country to really predict what an outcome is going to be. Forget about India. I find it tough to even poll a place like South Mumbai.
I'll grant you that. Forget about what the opinion polls are suggesting, but let's just look at the fact on the ground. And the reality is that as far as the last assembly elections were concerned, the Congress was routed. The Congress was routed in traditional Congress strongholds like Delhi and Rajasthan. That says something. That speaks for something.
Well, again, I come back to 2004, and if you remember in the 2003 elections in the same four states, in Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Delhi, we were in power in all four states, and we only managed to retain one, and we lost all three, very badly, in fact, in 2003. But yet in 2004, we came to power in the center. So, you know, people vote differently on state elections. People vote differently for central and parliamentary elections. I'm not saying that there isn't any anti-incumbency. I understand that we've been in power for 10 years. We've been in power in the center for 10 years. In Maharashtra, we've been in power for a few years. So, of course, there's bound to be anti-incumbency. But is that anti-incumbency a wave in favor of the opposition party? I don't believe that, because I think that, you know, it also depends a lot on the local candidate. It also depends on the local dynamics in the constituency. So for example, in my constituency in South Mumbai, my main battle is against my opponent from MNS, for instance, who's an MLA in my area who came second in the last elections.
You don't believe Meera
ultimately,
Sanyal
I believe that people will understand that they don't want to waste their votes.
So you're saying it's a battle between you and the... you're saying it's a battle between you and the candidate from the MNS. You're completely discounting Meera Sanyal?
No, I'm not discounting anyone. I didn't discount Meera Sanyal in 2009, even though she got, I think, 10,000 votes, and, you know, as compared to my 270,000 votes.
But she was fighting as an independent. She was fighting as an independent. This time around, she has the Arvind Kejriwal brand of politics and the Aam Aadmi Party tag. Perhaps that would ensure a better result or a better performance for her. Don't you believe that the Aam Aadmi Party has struck a chord with voters? We've seen Arvind Kejriwal campaign in Mumbai. He drew huge crowds. He's currently in Varanasi. You don't think the Aam Aadmi Party could play spoiler?
Well, look, what the Aam Aadmi Party can do and how strong their local candidates are, that's a separate issue. I think Aam Aadmi Party, in my opinion, is frankly a regional Delhi party. And that's something that we're going to see on the 16th of May. If they want to spread to other areas and how well they move beyond Delhi, maybe to Haryana and to Maharashtra and to Bangalore and other places, will ultimately depend on the strength, the network, and the work of the candidate. So in that sense, I have to prioritize as a candidate. I don't take any opponent lightly. There are almost 20 people who fight from South Mumbai every time. South Mumbai is a prestigious constituency. People fight not to win an election, many times just to be an ex-candidate of South Mumbai. But I take every opponent very, very seriously, whether they're fighting as independents, whether they're fighting from a small, new, mainstream party, whatever it is. But ultimately, in every battle, one has to strategize and prioritize. So for me, obviously my priority will be to prioritize, that MNS and Shiv Sena are my main candidates.
You were talking about how you've always spoken out about issues that concern voters, not just in your constituency, but also on a national level. And hence, a lot of people have alluded to the fact that, in a sense, you're Rahul Gandhi's ears and eyes. I know you've disputed that tooth and nail. But nevertheless, let me ask you, because you have commented also that the party in power needs to use young leaders and their talent. Do you believe that the Congress party has failed to use the young leaders and talent? Let's start with Mr. Rahul Gandhi himself. He hasn't been in government. There was a lot of talk about whether he would be part of the government or not. His attempt to try and reach out, to try and hit the campaign trail, some would say is too little too late. The public outbursts that we've seen as far as the ordinance, etc. were concerned have pretty much gone down as sort of immature from a political standpoint. Do you believe the Congress has failed to tap the power of the youth, and hence Narendra Modi has been able to connect much better with the youth?
Look, firstly, let me answer your first point about Milind Deora being Rahul Gandhi's weather vane. Nothing is further from the truth, number one. I know him. I've known him before we got into politics, but he's never involved me politically in various assignments. So I don't have a working professional relationship that people think I do with him, number one. Should we have done better in terms of involving the youth? I think, look, I've said this in the past also, that when we came back to power in 2009, I wish Rahul Gandhi got into government. I wish he got into government and worked with Dr. Manmohan Singh. I thought it would have been a very good, healthy combination of youth and experience, of wisdom, and a lot of grey hairs and a lot of young blood also. That didn't happen, and there's no point going back to the past and sort of looking at it in hindsight and saying, I wish we did that. But I do believe that Congress has given a lot of younger leaders a lot of important responsibilities. When I look at some of the ministers and my colleagues out there in the government, look at Sachin Pilot. He's the Minister of Corporate Affairs, which is a very critical ministry. Sachin, piloted the passage of the new companies bill in Parliament. Look at Jyotiraditya Scindia, who's an independent minister with independent charge of a very critical infrastructure ministry like power. I've been given the responsibility of IT, telecommunications, and shipping recently. So
I agree with you there, Milind, but let me put the other point of view across to you. If this is a party that Rahul Gandhi wants to re-engineer, this is a party that Rahul Gandhi wants to restructure, he's been talking about changing the orientation and the DNA, then why is it that people that you named, Sachin Pilot gets put in charge of Rajasthan just before the elections, and Jyotiraditya Scindia is put in charge of Madhya Pradesh, when there is very little that he can actually do to turn the fortunes of the Congress party around? That is what doesn't reconcile. You hear what Rahul Gandhi says, but then you see a completely different reality on ground.
But look, Shireen, no one is saying that there isn't room for improvement. I'm not saying we're a perfect party and we're doing everything perfectly. Of course, there's a lot of room for improvement. There's a lot of scope for making the right kind of changes, both in the party and in government. And I think it's fair to conclude, and it's fair to say that we didn't communicate a lot of our strengths as effectively as we should have in the last 2 or 3 years especially. It's also fair to say we didn't communicate our weaknesses or the allegations thrown against us, because a lot of them might be frivolous, a lot of them might be grossly exaggerated. We didn't put those out there. So at one level, I do think there was a communication failure, but I don't think it's entirely the party's blame or the government's blame in not communicating. We have to remember this is a new environment that's been created in India, where you have RTI, where you have 24/7 news channels who are competing for space, for business, and as a result, let's be honest, they can be sensational at times. You have social media, and we just happen to be the first government operating in that environment.
Let's be honest, can you really blame policy paralysis on the fact that you're now dealing with a new environment where there's social media and so on and so forth? I mean, let's just take a look at the most recent example, and that is the gas price decision, which has been deferred now by the insistence or the directive of the Election Commission. You set up a committee, the Rangarajan Committee gave you its recommendations. The cabinet waited for 10 months before taking that decision, and after that, the decision to notify it was also left till the Election Code of Conduct came into effect. So I'm just using one example to show that there has been policy paralysis, and you cannot blame it on social media or 24/7 news channels.
No, I'm not blaming it on anyone. I accept that taking decisions, look, I'm just saying that there's a new environment been created in our country. Pre-2005, Shireen, please remember, we didn't have RTI in our country. Every government that ran India for the last so many decades operated in a non-RTI regime, where any file that was signed by a minister wasn't available to the public for, it wasn't transparent. And post-2005, suddenly every decision of the government was open to the public. Suddenly people inferred maybe this was taken with the wrong intent, maybe there was corruption. Then of course you had media and you had social media. So I'm not saying that it's only the fault of the environment. I do believe that we as a party and a government should have seen that coming. I think in hindsight, because I was the MP who initiated the debate on RTI in 2005, May, and I think in hindsight, maybe we as a party and a government should have said, look, we're suddenly changing the relationship between government and the citizen, and it's going to lead to a lot of information going out into the hands of the public, into the hands of the media, social media. We're seeing internet growth, and maybe people will start using it objectively or subjectively, and maybe even frivolously. And maybe it's important that we create a cell in the INB ministry, in the government, to actually put out information, to counter wrong information. So I do believe it is largely our inability also to communicate as effectively as we should have. I'm not taking shirking away from that responsibility. I do think we could have done a much better job at communicating.
On that note, we're going to take a quick break, but when we return, we continue our conversation with Milind Deora on The Candidate.